The late afternoon sun hung low over the city, casting long golden rays across the streets. Cars rushed by, people hurried with coffee cups and phones in hand, their lives a blur of noise and distraction. Among the crowd was a boy 14, maybe 15 years old, walking alone with a quiet gaze. His name was Malik, and though the city around him bustled with life, his world felt small, heavy with responsibilities that no child should have to carry. His sneakers, worn thin at the soles, scuffed against the pavement. His shirt was faded, patched in places where the fabric had torn, but his posture carried a kind of resilience that couldn't be patched or stitched. He walked past polished shop windows, his reflection a stark contrast to the people rushing by in tailored suits and sparkling dresses. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Malik noticed something unusual. Just ahead on the sidewalk, a woman stumbled. Her face tightened in pain, her hands clutching her swollen belly. She was pregnant, and from the way her knees buckled, she wasn't just tired, she was in trouble. Malik froze for a second. Around her, dozens of people slowed to glance, then kept walking. Some whispered, some frowned, but no one stepped forward. His heart raced. Should I go? What if I make it worse? But then her sharp cry cut through the air, and Malik's hesitation vanished. He sprinted forward. Dropping to his knees beside her, he asked, "Ma'am, are you okay?" His voice was shaky, but determined. Her breathing was ragged, sweat beading across her forehead. She tried to speak, but the words dissolved into a moan of pain. Her hand gripped Malik's wrist, desperate and trembling. "Don't move, I'll help," Malik said, his young voice steadying with courage. He carefully shifted her so she could lean against a tree for support. But his eyes widened when he noticed the faint stain spreading on her dress. Panic surged. "No, no, no, hang on, please." He looked around. People passed, their eyes sliding away as if the scene was an inconvenience. Malik's chest tightened. Why won't anyone help? Then, from a distance, a frantic shout pierced the air. "Sarah!" Malik turned his head and saw a man in a suit running down the sidewalk, his tie flapping behind him, his face twisted with fear. The woman, Sarah, opened her eyes weakly, recognizing him. Tears pooled as she whispered, "Richard," before another wave of pain silenced her. Richard Alden. His name was known across the city, business tycoon, billionaire, the man whose company touched everything from skyscrapers to hospitals. But in this moment, none of that mattered. He wasn't a tycoon. He wasn't a billionaire. He was a husband, terrified of losing the woman he loved and the child they had prayed for. He fell to his knees beside her. "Sarah, hold on, please." His voice cracked as he brushed damp hair from her face. Malik shuffled back, unsure if he was still needed. But Sarah's trembling hand reached out, gripping his fingers again. Her eyes, clouded with pain, begged him not to leave. Within minutes, the sound of sirens roared through the street. An ambulance screeched to a halt, and medics rushed forward. They lifted Sarah onto a stretcher, their voices urgent. Richard climbed in without hesitation, but when Malik stepped back, one of the paramedics called, "Kid, you coming? She doesn't want to let go of you." Malik blinked, stunned. But Sarah's hand was still clutched tightly around his. He nodded quickly and climbed into the ambulance. The ride was chaos, monitors beeping, the scent of antiseptic filling the air, the medics shouting terms Malik didn't understand. He held Sarah's hand the whole way, whispering, "You'll be okay, ma'am. Just hang on." Richard sat on the other side, gripping his wife's other hand, his eyes flickering between Sarah and the boy. His chest heaved. Who is this kid? Why was he there when no one else cared? At the hospital, the doors burst open, and Sarah was rushed into the emergency room. Malik and Richard were left in the sterile, blindingly white corridor, the sound of Sarah's cries fading into the distance. Richard paced like a man on fire. He ripped off his jacket, tugged at his tie, his polished shoes echoing on the tile. Malik sat quietly, hands folded in his lap, feeling small in the vast hallway but unwilling to leave. Hours crawled by. The world outside carried on, but in that hallway, time had frozen. Malik's stomach growled quietly, but he ignored it. He had promised Sarah he wouldn't leave. Finally, the doors swung open, and a doctor stepped out. His face was serious but calm. "She's stable," the doctor said. "And the baby is safe. Both are going to be fine." Richard's knees buckled with relief. He pressed his palms to his face, tears spilling freely. Then, after a long breath, he turned to Malik. His voice broke as he said, "You saved her. You saved them." "If you hadn't been there," he stopped, unable to finish. Malik shook his head quickly. "I just did what anyone would do." Richard studied him, really studied him. The boy's shirt was frayed, his shoes barely holding together. His face carried the weariness of someone who'd seen too much hardship for his age. And yet, his eyes held a light Richard hadn't seen in a long time. A few days later, when Sarah and the baby were strong enough to come home, Richard sent a car to pick up Malik. He wanted to thank him properly. Malik had never seen anything like the Alden estate. The gates towered above him, the gardens stretched endlessly, and the mansion itself looked like a castle out of a movie. He hesitated at the front steps, feeling out of place. But when the door opened, Sarah herself greeted him, her arms cradling a sleeping newborn. Her eyes were soft, full of gratitude. "Malik," she whispered, "you're our angel." Richard ushered him inside, his tone businesslike but his eyes warm. "Son, I owe you everything. Whatever you want, it's yours. A scholarship. A car. Money. Anything. Just say the word." Malik looked around at the gleaming chandeliers, the marble floors, the wealth beyond imagination. His throat tightened. He thought of his own mother, hunched over after long shifts, her hands cracked from cleaning houses, her smile weary but determined. Slowly, Malik shook his head. "I don't need money. Or things." Richard frowned. "Then what do you want?" Malik's voice trembled, but his eyes stayed firm. "Can you give my mom a job? She works so hard, but it's never enough. She's always tired. I just want her to rest. To smile again." Richard's breath caught. He stared at the boy in stunned silence. He had expected demands, maybe even greed. But this child, who had saved his wife and child, wanted nothing for himself. Only dignity for his mother. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He walked the halls of his estate, past paintings worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. Yet none of it brought him peace. Malik's words echoed in his mind. "I just want her to smile again." For years, Richard had measured life in profits, contracts, acquisitions. But now he saw the hollowness of it all. A boy with nothing had reminded him what it meant to truly live. The next morning, Richard didn't just offer Malik's mother a job. He created something far greater, a foundation for struggling single mothers. It began with Malik's mom, but soon spread to hundreds, then thousands of women, lifting them out of despair into dignity. Malik's family's life transformed. His mother found stable work, enough to breathe, enough to laugh again. Malik himself thrived, his education funded, his dreams finally within reach. Years later, at Malik's high school graduation, the auditorium was packed with proud families. On the front row sat Richard and Sarah, their child, now a young boy. Holding their hands. Malik took the stage, his cap and gown crisp, his smile radiant. He paused, scanning the crowd until his eyes found his mother. She was crying, her face glowing with pride. Malik took a deep breath and spoke. "People say wealth makes you powerful. But the greatest wealth is not what you keep, it's what you give. One small act of courage, one choice to care, can change everything." The audience erupted in applause. Richard, tears streaming down his face, realized the truth. Malik hadn't just saved his wife's life. He had saved his soul. And as Malik stepped down from the stage, Sarah whispered to her husband, "This boy will change the world." If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to Soul Touch Stories. With your support, we'll continue to share powerful tales that remind us of the goodness within humanity. Because sometimes, it only takes one small act of courage to change the world forever.